today's draft, trades that could happen from now through draft weekend. But that's going to be later on, because in the meantime, since all three of us have spoken, there's a new highest paid running back in the NFL. Christian McCaffrey, 4-year extension, $16 million per year. He still had 1 year left on his rookie contract to go along with a 5th-year option. Ian, there are two sides to this. One, Christian McCaffrey is the face of the Carolina Panthers. He plays on 90% of snaps over the last 2 years. He's obviously uber productive and should absolutely be that in Joe Brady's new offense for this team. But two, we have seen numerous second contracts for running backs absolutely turn into bad decisions for those NFL teams. Where do you fall on each side of the equation?
So I think we can be happy that McCaffrey got paid and also wonder if it was a good team building decision. But with that said, like, what would have happened if the Panthers had said, no, we're going to let McCaffrey walk. We're not going to pay running backs. We don't care if he holds out for the entire 2020 season. I think it would have been a terrible PR move for their chances at getting pretty much any other free agent. I mean, at some point you need to pay the really good players on your football team. Now, probably what we can go back to, should they have drafted McCaffrey with the number 8 overall pick in the 2017 draft? That's kind of the question where you run into, okay, maybe you shouldn't have done that. But I don't know. I find it hard. Even with the Zeke contracts, like, yes, it's too much money. I'm not trying to say running backs aren't replaceable. Even the awesome receiving backs like McCaffrey. And we were saying the same thing when David Johnson got paid, when Le'Veon Bell got paid. It was, yeah, they're a running back, but they're so special as a receiver. You can warrant the extra money. So, no, it sucks they paid him so much from a team building perspective, but I see why they kind of had to do it.
And the good news is he's only 23, right? So he himself will likely play out to the end of this contract and get all that money and then be eligible for another lucrative extension at 27. And if I'm the Panthers, then I'm probably running. But at least at this time, he's still extremely young.
To go back to your first point, Ian, I think those of us on the outside can look at the contract and the timing of it and say, okay, why didn't this team just ask him to play on the final year of his rookie contract, then the 5th-year option, then franchise him the next year and the year after, and that ultimately might be like $50 million. Well, because, feelings are involved, right? These are people. They aren't just personalities that you put on a piece of paper and you just get to, maneuver them how you want to. If Christian McCaffrey probably didn't get a deal now or prior to next season, he was absolutely going to sit out. And that impacts, one, the look and the face of the franchise. I mean, he is the face of the franchise now. You have Cam Newton, gone. Luke Kuechly, gone. Greg Olsen, gone. Like, it is a totally new franchise, new system, new outward-facing people. And that has to be part of the factor of how we dissect and review this type of a deal, even though from maybe a team building standpoint, we haven't seen these types of contracts work.
I will say, this contract might not look that bad in a couple of years too, because it's only,
good point.
Before this, Zeke was at the top of the running backs in terms of just average per year at 15 million. Now McCaffrey's at 16. Kamara's going to need to get paid. Derrick Henry's going to need to get paid. And I'm sure they're going to want to be paid, more than McCaffrey. So no running backs hit that $20 million mark yet. But, once we look back at this in a couple of years and McCaffrey's all of a sudden the 4th or 5th most expensive contract, won't be as bad.
Derrick Henry's the interesting one that came to mind because Christian McCaffrey only played 66 snaps from the slot last year, but still has the receiving chops, obviously. At least 100 targets and 3 consecutive seasons to start his career. Whereas we know Derrick Henry, even as recently as last year, got game scripted off the field. What does Derrick Henry's contract look like now?
Good question. And to go back to my previous point, I was kind of, caping for the Panthers a little bit for this move. But from like a team building standpoint, it might not work. Like, these decisions might not be a net positive. Like, we've seen, some of the best teams in the NFL have undrafted running backs to ones on low deals being the most important parts of their running and passing game. And I understand your point, Daigle, that, Christian McCaffrey does have the receiving chops, but so much of that, like 90-something% of it, is within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage. Like, he's not really a slot receiver, right? He's not really a true wide receiver. So while you can post the production, and I think, Christian McCaffrey is an incredible football player, both between the tackles and out in space, and creative ways you can get in the football. This really is, at the end of the day, a running back that you are paying this money to. And to kind of twist it as that he's also a receiver, which I've seen online, I think that's kind of false advertising.
Yeah, it was kind of sad in week 17 last year when they were trying to get him over 1,000 receiving yards as they're just getting blown out of the water in the most meaningless game ever. It's still Will Grier and Kyle Allen trying to get him over the mark. He got over the mark. He's a great player, but yes, to your point, I mean, we see what happens to offenses. Look at the Jaguars last year. Like, force feeding your running back 350, 400 targets isn't exactly what we see some of the top scoring offenses in the league consistently do. This may be a dumb question, and I don't mean to
ask it.
I don't mean to put the pressure on Ian because this seems like something he would understand better than me. How much of a running back's receiving worth is him just getting fed and him not running himself open? Like, is Christian McCaffrey truly a receiver, or is it just because this team has players that dump off to him?
Yeah, it's a good split, Daigle, because, you have your angle routes. You have your times when he's matched up against linebackers, like the Green Bay Packers from a couple years ago when, Cam was talking smack pre-snap and then he finds Christian McCaffrey in the end zone. Like, those plays absolutely always stand out. But again, as much as we like to talk about receiving chops for running backs, again, it's not a case where they're going to line up out wide or in the slot 30+% of the time. Like, it really is these checkdowns or the layups, as the Panthers have called them in the past, and then asking Christian McCaffrey to win after the catch. And again, that can be an important part of an offense. We all wish, Jameis Winston threw more layups last year instead of throwing interceptions. But in terms of one-on-one, because this is like Adam Thielen money, right? He's not an Adam Thielen type wide receiver. Does that make sense, Ian?
Yeah, the only thing I would add is just that, like, when you have McCaffrey in the backfield, that if you put a linebacker on him, it's game over because no one can guard him on the option route. So I think it does help them kind of get a better numbers in the box. I mean, the defense, I don't have this data to back it up, but I would imagine the Panthers face more safeties in the box because they have to account for McCaffrey than a team that has a Derrick Henry or, more concerned with stopping the run. So it certainly makes you think twice. Now, is that all worth $16 million per year? I don't know.
One final point. This, again, is on the trend of the Panthers not going through the model of what the Miami Dolphins did, in the last 365 days, right? They're much closer to 7-9, 8-8 than they are in to trying to get a top 5 selection. I'm a little nervous for the long-term vision of what Matt Rule and his possible ultimate success. And by that, I mean, if he does not have success in the first 2 or 3 years, this could turn into a situation where the owner only cares about winning and then moves on from a 7-year contract in that span. I'm not sure if that's being brought up yet because I think this is only pauses we can speak up to an owner and his hiring so far. But, things that might happen, this might be an owner who doesn't have nearly as much patience as some might be portraying right now.
I genuinely don't even know if this is a rebuild. I don't know what this is. I have no idea.
It's 7-9, 8-8. That's what it is.
What? Who are they going to slow down this entire league? Their defense has I don't even know if they have 11 starters on the roster right now.
That's what I mean. 7-9, 8-8 at best.
Okay, yeah, that's like a ceiling.
But it's not. But like.
But when that's your ceiling, that is difficult. And I would say their floor is 4 wins. Yeah. So that's a 3-win gap where we talk about in the NFL. There might be 3 to 5 plays a week that determine if you win or lose a football game. And for them, not even to have a 3 to 5 win gap as an organization to pull them up to 11 wins, that's terrifying as a team and how it's constructed right now. So,
yeah, I'm not even trying to hate on Teddy at the moment. It's just I don't know how they're going to stop anyone. This is clearly the league's worst defense at the moment.
Well, maybe they can fix that in the draft. And speaking of the draft, let us now focus on trades that could happen from now until draft weekend. I actually didn't even lay out the draft order. I think last week, Daigle had the number 1 selection. Mm-hmm. So Ian Harditz, I believe you have the number 1 selection. This week, I will have the number 2. Then Daigle is on the turn. Again, these are the trades that we see that could happen from now through draft weekend. Ian Harditz has the number 1 pick.
Here's the one. I know Josh has also been in on this throughout the offseason. We're going to send Matt Breida from the San Francisco 49ers to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for a 5th-round pick. Maybe they could even get it for less. But, I mean, what would Bruce Arians and the Bucs GM have come out and given Ron Jones, some public backing, I guess. But at the same time, Arians at the combine saying, what's he looking for in running back? Receiving ability. Matt Breida can do that. I mean, I was watching some of his film from today, against the Chiefs in the preseason, lined up in the slot, fade, awesome route combination, diving catch in the end zone. We talk about how McCaffrey, even if he's not a full-time slot receiver, not many people are, but he's a legit receiving talent, obviously. Breida isn't McCaffrey, but he is a 3-down back when they give him the opportunity. I know he's banged up all the time. He still only missed 3 games at the most in a single season throughout his career. Biggest issue has just been the fumbles, which got him in the doghouse in the first place last season. But, hey, that's why San Fran seems to be reportedly willing to trade him. So let's get the Buccaneers a legit running back and not waste it on a rookie that's going to split reps with Dari and Ron.
And also just his pass blocking. We know he was the one game he was starting for them over Peyton Barber. They threw him out there to pass block, and he, all the season, just allowed a sack, 2 hits and 5 hurries on 49 pass blocking snaps. So, and that, of course, is what Tom Brady depends on in the backfield. So as much as we would maybe like it to happen, maybe that's not the right phrasing. Maybe we don't want it to happen at all. The fact is they're not going to rely on Ronald Jones. They will address that need somewhere. And the Niners beat writer, Matt, wish I would have got the phonetic pronunciation ahead of time, but I didn't. So let's go for it. Matt Miacho, is that correct?
Mayoko, probably?
Mayoko, thank you. Yeah. Whatever the case, he even recently wrote last week, I believe, that Matt Breida is expected to be traded before the regular season. So
love it.
I would love to see the Bucs land him.
Matt Breida is the type of talent that I want on an NFL team that I'm theoretically orchestrating. And, while Bruce Arians and Tom Brady and whoever else have talked about adding a pass-catching back to that offense, we have seen, and Tom Brady recently said on his Howard Stern interview, that trust is absolutely pivotal in, giving opportunities to skill position players, whether they be receivers or running backs. And Dave, you pointed out pass protection. We also talk about, being in the right place at the right time. I don't know if you can rely on a running back unless it's maybe like Clyde Edwards-Helaire or someone who has plenty of pass catching ability and exposures in his background coming out of, a pro-style offense in college. There aren't many of those in the draft. So why not attach yourself to a veteran presence who may only cost a day 3 selection? And Matt Breida would be just a lovely move for the Buccaneers to make.
We know it's probably not someone in the draft, but we also know it's not Dari Ogunbowale. So
no.
You got to look elsewhere.
No. The Rotoworld news feed is upset by that, though, because those 10 blurbs in August were absolutely fantastic for Dari.
Really drove me crazy.
All right.
Hey, he was relevant enough to take 30% snaps away from those guys. So
there you go. All right, number 2 selection. The Miami Dolphins move up for a quarterback. Currently, they're at the number 5 overall pick. I think this is the easiest trade to project in the NFL draft. While we have seen, quarterbacks teams sit and wait for quarterbacks in previous years more often, than other seasons, I doubt that happens this year. I think that with how crazy and odd this draft process is, teams will identify the quarterback that they believe in outside of Joe Burrow, obviously, and make it the focal reason that this draft exists to go and get him. Again, Dolphins at number 5, but in the first round, they also possess the number 18 overall selection, the number 26 overall selection. Maybe it's the Washington Redskins at number 2. Maybe it's the Detroit Lions at number 3. But these are all potential spots where the Dolphins, and I'm not suggesting in who they take. There are rumors that it might be Justin Herbert over Tua. For a very long time, we heard Tank for Tua, but it would be a shock, wouldn't it, Daigle, for this Miami Dolphins team with how they've built the organization, the draft capital they've acquired, to not leave this draft without their franchise quarterback?
The only issue is, and perhaps this is an issue, because I was thinking on this exact deal earlier, but what do we do with Ryan Fitzpatrick? Because rookies aren't going to sit a full year. I know we like to say, even someone like Jalen Hurts is a project. He's going to sit behind for a year. It just doesn't happen anymore. They get thrown under center immediately. And with one more year left on this deal, would you think that Ryan Fitzpatrick goes in this deal? Does he just suddenly become a backup to a rookie?
Dago, I think he's just loving life. You know,
That's
like
right.
I think Ryan Fitzpatrick just understands and is extremely self-aware of where he is as an NFL quarterback right now, and racking up this paycheck while living in Florida. And is kind of somewhat of a cult hero in some ways, just because of the entertaining style of play he has.
Mhm.
And he's only one play away from getting back onto the field. I think he's in a great situation. I'm envious of his situation.
If he's loving life, I don't want to know what Josh Rosen's doing.
I mean, Fitzpatrick literally said last year, like, I am the perfect quarterback for this team. I think he gets 100%. And before Miami, he was perfectly fine backing up Jameis Winston. I know at some points he was even out playing Jameis, and there was a mini quarterback controversy. But there was never seemed to be any rift between Jameis and Fitzpatrick. I mean, maybe I'm taking too much away from their, few meetings on Hard Knocks and all that. But I don't know. I wouldn't really worry about Fitzpatrick. I mean, go get your future quarterback. Who gives a crap about your 39-year-old quarterback that happens to be starting right now?
He did play really good, though, in the interim.
He played fun.
Leading rusher.
He played
Ryan
really
Fitzpatrick.
good. He was a leading rusher, yeah.
He's going to rack in $8 million in 2020, John Daigle. That's pretty good. At 38 years of age. One day. I've got 7 years to make that much money in a year. So we'll see. All right, John Daigle, you are up here at number 3.
You said that one was the most obvious, but I'm just going to lean towards another obvious one. The Browns have roughly $29 million in cap space, second most in the league, only behind the Panthers, who have a whopping margin for a lead. So let's just stop beating around the bush, and rather than take a chance at that number 10 overall pick on a project tackle who does have a high ceiling, let's just grab the ceiling. Let's go with what we know and get Trent Williams from Washington for the number 10 overall pick. Yes, it will take 18 to 21 million, likely a cap hit in 2020 of that 29 million in cap space, but let's just get it done and call it a day.
I had Trent Williams heading somewhere
You can
in a
still
trade.
use it. You can still use it.
Okay.
Our top 10 trades that could happen, whatever. So we can still use other players.
Ian, pick it up.
Williams trade. So
I had the Browns making a move, similar thoughts to you, John. They have all this cap space. They only have 2 or 3 more years with Baker on a relatively low-cost deal. Yeah, let's go make a splash. I was thinking go defensive side of the ball and get Yannick to kind of help fortify that front seven if they're not going to sign Clowney, which who knows what's going on with that right now. But man, we've talked about the Browns since the beginning of last season. Left tackle has been the hole. It's still the hole. If you can fill it with a first-round pick, why not?
So the place I had Trent Williams going, Daigle, was to the Minnesota Vikings. That Minnesota Vikings offensive line played a lot better last year than they did the year before, but I don't know if they're at the point where they believe that they are like Super Bowl contending. And obviously it's going to be a bit of a shift, getting a first-round pick in exchange for Stephon Diggs. But this team has shown that they are not afraid in the Vikings to like make that one extra move that they feel they have to. Remember just a couple training camps ago, they traded a first-round pick for Sam Bradford when Teddy B got hurt. Like just out of nowhere, just dishing a first-round selection. The Vikings do have 2 first-round picks. They have 6 picks in the opening 4 rounds, 12 total. And just from observing those who closely follow and cover the Vikings, the Riley Reef situation seems to be a bit off balance right now. And I wouldn't be surprised if he would be included in a deal to go back to Washington, because they're obviously in need of a left tackle, and they're going to have to deal away Trent Williams on top of that.
in particular, they need help on their interior line, but the exception is obviously if you can add someone of caliber like Trent Williams, you're going to take it.
David, you're on the turn. Back-to-back picks.
Let's see here. The Lions added Jamie Collins, Desmond Trufant, Danny Shelton, Nick Williams, a number of significant free agents, but are in still need of a cornerback after trading Darius Slay. However, if the Jaguars call and say, hey, you have the number 3 pick, we have Yannick Ngakoue, let's talk, because you can add someone across from Trey Flowers now and essentially make that front 7 that much stronger. I think you take it and you can still move back to that number 9 pick from the Jaguars and land a guy like CJ Henderson or whatever defensive player you want to go in with.
I like it. It's been interesting to see some of the, Daniel Jeremiah's of the world kind of release some rumors they're hearing. And I'm not sure if it's specifically him that said this, but it sounds like normal NFL teams are a little bit lower on Okudah than, some of these mock drafters have been making it out to be. So if they feel like Okudah is a stretch at 3, yeah, wait, go get your cornerback elsewhere because, I don't know, relying on any rookie corner, no matter how good they are, to kind of provide that Darius Slay, they're going to be on an island, do not worry about them the entire game. That's asking a lot. So if you want to try to help that pass rush, try to help make the job easier for everyone in the secondary, why not? I'm waiting for someone to go get Yannick. I mean, he hasn't signed that franchise tender. He's clearly not happy. And we were talking in our writer chat, like 49ers got D Ford for a second-round pick last year. It might not even cost the first for Yannick, and he's still young enough and good enough. If you got a QB on a rookie contract or just cap space in general, why not?
It's been shocking to see and read that buzz of Jeffrey Okudah and someone like C.J. Henderson not being that separate on a draft board, and maybe even some teams having Henderson above Jeffrey Okudah. My only pushback on this, Daigle, is, Matt Patricia, we all know he has this foundation with the New England Patriots. And we've seen the Patriots, we've seen the Dolphins prioritize, obviously, their secondary over a pass rush. I understand what you're saying, that they could maybe get a pass rusher to go along with a cornerback, but, adding a quote-unquote shutdown corner potentially at number 3, I mean, I even think there's a discussion to make that maybe Washington, if they believe in coverage over pass rush, which I don't think Ron Rivera does at his core, but taking Jeffrey Okudah number 2 overall would not be a misstep at all. But I like it, Daigle. That's an interesting one.
If they do that, though, let's say even in this situation, if the Lions stay at 3 and go elsewhere, what is the difference between Okudah and who is next on your board, as you said, C.J. Henderson? Like, I know C.J. Henderson, 6'1", 193, 4% body fat, like a freak.
Right.
But is there like that big of a drop-off between their performance?
Well, his tackling absolutely stunk last year. Henderson's did. And so, having that obvious flaw is important when you're, asked to set the edge and force everything back inside. The other part of it is Henderson on paper gave up a good amount of production, but he was asked to basically shadow and trail top corners top receivers across the SEC week in and week out. Ben Fennell came on this very podcast this past week and compared C.J. Henderson to Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie. And while DRC, wasn't perceived as, a top 3 to top 5 corner every single year during his time, he absolutely every time would step on an NFL field and say, I'm going to trail and shadow your best receiver. And so I think that comparison does make sense from that standpoint, where Henderson has already been tested every single week against obviously some of the top receivers in the country. Make sense?
Sure, yeah.
Okay. Let's move on. Let's go to pick number 5. I have a few good selections here, but let's go with this one. The Baltimore Ravens have 7 picks in the opening 4 rounds of the NFL draft. I really basically only consider the draft 4 rounds. Maybe you can throw the 5th in there as well, because rounds 6 and 7 are basically just priority free agents that are attached to your team. Anyways, are there really 7 open spots on the roster for the Ravens right now? I mean, this was one of the most complete and talented rosters in the NFL in 2019. They've obviously added to that at integral part and pieces during free agency. So rather than spend all 7 of those picks, is it better to move up from where they are right now and find a player, an alpha prospect at one of, the areas of need that they still have? Could it be, K'Lavon Chaisson to work the edge after losing Terrell Suggs and a few other names in the past few years? Could it be like what the Pittsburgh Steelers last year did and move up into the top 10 to get a linebacker like they did with Devin Bush? Could it be to go get an interior offensive lineman or another offensive lineman to fill that Marshall Yanda role? So I think obviously the Ravens have been one of the best teams in the last few years of maximizing the supplemental draft pick process, and obviously acquiring a second round pick for someone like Hayden Hurst, who is kind of a back end of the roster player for them. But now is the time to maybe package some of those valuable picks and move up for a priority prospect on your draft board.
And not just that, but they have Matthew Judon on a sign and trade since he hasn't signed his franchise tag yet. So that's also bait.
Yeah, I love it. Let's go get an edge rusher. I mean, you mentioned Suggs leaving, but they didn't manage to replace Darius Smith either. I mean, it's been in C.J. Mosley, in the middle. I know he's not a pure pass rusher, but just that front 7 in general. I think that's why they had to blitz so much last season to try to create any pressure. They just they weren't used to not having, guys that could win one-on-one and actually impact the quarterback. So they pretty much, they blitzed on 54% of their opponent's dropbacks. The number 2 team was like in the low 40s. So if their quarterbacks, like, they're built for that kind of style, don't let guys run double moves, pretty much sit on routes and get the ball out quicker. But if you can help them just a little bit and get some sort of pass rush without sending 6 guys, I think you have to try to do it.
The rich getting richer.
So those are the first 5 selections so far. We're halfway through this draft. Ian started with Matt Breida, traded to the Tampa Bay Bucks. Then the Dolphins trade up for a quarterback from pick number 5. John Daigle, back-to-back picks. Browns trade for Trent Williams to lock down the left tackle spot. And the Lions trading for Yannick Ngakoue and still getting a corner in the top 10. And I close up the top 5 with the Ravens trading up for a priority prospect from pick number 28. Ian, you have 2 picks in a row. Choose wisely.
All right. I've been calling the Philadelphia Eagles, in my opinion, the second best NFC team right now, behind only the New Orleans Saints. What's the one thing they haven't got this offseason, though? Wide receiver. That's why we're going to trade for Juju Smith-Schuster. Not giving up a first.
Wow.
Maybe a second. Maybe we got to do some other maneuvering, but let's get Juju to Philly. They've been looking for this slot guy for years. They traded for Golden Tate in 2018. Didn't want to re-sign him. They tried the Nelson Aguilar thing again. We all saw how that worked out. And look, we're already hearing murmurs that Pittsburgh might not be running the re-sign Juju after the season. Now, if Ben stays healthy and Juju, does what he did the first 2 years of his career, maybe this doesn't happen. But the guy's value is like at a complete low. To have, 1,600 yards in his age 22 season. Even if you want to say that AB, drawing double and triple teams had a lot to do with that, clearly Juju is a very, very good talent at the wide receiver position. And Philly, again, if you're in contention, you're not that many pieces away, go get him. He complements the entire offense as it's already set up, and I think he can even give them more dimensions with the different things he can do after the catch. So it's helping your quarterback. Pittsburgh, with their, adding Ebron to that group, having Deontay Johnson, James Washington, how good they've been drafting wide receivers over the year. It wouldn't shock me if they don't want to hand Juju a bunch of money. Now, Juju you can't name like a better, just kind of up-and-coming, young, off-the-field guy to have on your team. So even if they don't view him as a top 5 receiver, maybe they feel they can still pay him because of how good of a guy he really is. But if I were Philly, I would definitely make this call and just see what the asking price is.
In the self-proclaimed main event of Friday's charity stream, where Ian and I did a 2-hour best ball draft and just bantered and took questions about football back and forth throughout the evening, we started a discussion on Juju. And as I told him, you don't catch for over 2,500 yards in your first 2 years in the league, but then suddenly disappear because you don't matter. Like, Juju is such a special player still to this very moment. So whether it's in dynasty leagues or perhaps the Steelers re-signing him in reality, or even season longs and best ball leagues, like Juju, you have to buy his stock every single place you can.
Ian, I absolutely love this move. My only concern is that the Steelers, self-evaluating here, believe they are in their Super Bowl window right now. And it's because of the move that they obviously made for Minkah Fitzpatrick and how fantastic that defense played last season. But when you look at it from our seats, while that defense was great, one, we've seen that with the top defenses not be as sticky year to year. Two, the offense is full of questions. How is Ben going to look? One, after this hibernation he went on through this offseason and coming back from that injury. And you have tons of questions from those that cover the team around the 2 most high-profile players on that offense other than Ben Roethlisberger now. And James Conner, who everyone's reporting is not going to get a second deal as of now, and Juju Smith-Schuster, who everyone's reporting is not going to get a second deal right now based on what he's asking for. So, Ian, I don't know if this team would be willing to do that, but I love the move. I love the theoretical move.
That's fair.
What was the compensation you suggested, Ian?
I was thinking a second, and I floated out on Twitter, and people were kind of wondering, based on some of these wide receiver trades, if someone will be able to get Juju without giving away a first, which that's why you might have to, give a second and then maybe flip a 4th for a 7th or some other upgrade. But I don't know. After last season, and I think teams really do kind of question if Juju can be that complete number 1 focal point, just because he hasn't had to be yet. Like John said, I'm not saying he can't be. He's been way too good to just be a nothing. Whether he's a top 5 or 10 talent, I don't know, but he's still absolutely a great guy to have in your offense.
Ian, would you deal pick number 21 for Juju if you were running a team? Like, what if they say we are not getting rid of this young wide receiver who already has so much production in the NFL without getting your first-round pick in return?
No, I wouldn't trade pick 21 for him. I think the wide receiver – you would?
I would, yeah. Again, we keep saying this is the deepest wide receiver class ever, but Juju is proven. I don't care what anyone says.
But why wait, right, Daigle? Why wait?
Exactly. He's proven, and the first year of this receiver class is going to get dicey if they're not even throwing routes with their own quarterbacks until September. Like, we don't know the production. We just know their athletic profiles. Like, I would not hesitate at all to get Juju.
One final nugget in this, Ian. You brought up how beloved Juju is seemingly across the football world and how great he is with the media. The wide receiver group last season for the Eagles didn't seem to be that to the media and inside that locker room. Plenty of buzz connecting Alshon Jeffrey and Nelson Aguilar to leaks that we got outside of, not getting along with Carson Wentz, that he has his favorite target, so on and so forth. So adding that piece and personality fit might be the little pivotal part that takes this over the edge. All right, Ian, your second selection.
We're getting a little quirky here. I want the Colts to send Chad Swag Kelly to the Los Angeles Chargers for a 6th or 7th round pick. Whatever you got to do to get it done. I'm waiting for Swag to get a regular season chance. I don't know what this guy needs to do. He has the family pedigree of talent. Clearly, we saw Ole Miss, highly recruited to Clemson. The guy played at the highest level of college football, took down Baylor. Like, he thrived when he wasn't injured, goes to the NFL. All he's done the last 2 preseasons with the Colts and Broncos is absolutely ball out. He just didn't get a chance. The fact Brian Hoyer got reps in that regular season game without even giving a look to Swag was malpractice coaching. I don't care how good Frank Reich is and everything else and how much more about football he knows than me, but come on, man. Like, at some point, why are we not letting this guy compete for a starting job? He's a knucklehead. I understand that. He's self-sabotaged himself more than a few times, but man, the talent is there. And in a league that is starved for quarterback talent, this guy is showing the rifle arm. He's showing the dual threat ability. He's showing all these great traits, but we just kind of shake our like, it's Swag Kelly. He's never going to put it together. I want someone to give him a chance to put it together. You're already rolling with Tyrod Taylor, and apparently Anthony Lynn's infatuated by it. So, okay, Anthony, let's see if your boy can beat out someone that has a lot of talent and has been showing out recently. So tell me why I'm wrong.
Plus, with Hard Knocks in LA this year, we might get a cowboy hat and nothing else inside Sophie Stadium. So that's a plus as well.
Ian, if I have learned anything from working with you for the last 9 months, is that you are loyal. You are loyal to your guys. You are loyal to the people that you believe in. And Chad Kelly is one of those people who tops the list. I think you mentioned why he's not getting opportunities. Like, he might have been in line for that. And didn't he just get cut this year for partying and like having the cops called and all this kind of stuff? Like, that was kind of a little topic that you failed to mention right now.
He was at Von Miller's birthday party. He had one or two few many. Has that not happened to all of us before?
Well, I'm not trying to be the starting quarterback of NFL franchise. I will also add that Chad Kelly looks like he's throwing javelins whenever he's trying to throw a football during preseason football. Like,
hey, it ends up in his receiver's hands in stride, so I don't care how it looks. They've been watching Phillip Rivers freaking shot put balls for 2 decades. You think the Chargers care how it looks?
When I was 26, I had like this infatuation with Zach Dysert. I'm glad you have yours with Chad Kelly. I love it.
Okay.
I love it, Ian Hartitz. All right. Speaking of personal favorites and how we just cannot quit them, I'm going to get Dante Pettis on the move. Dante Pettis is a wide receiver, obviously, for San Francisco 49ers. Some of you might have forgotten who he is by now. This time last year, he was a hot commodity in fantasy football circles because of how he finished the 2018-2019 season. But then immediately, once summer activities started for the 49ers, Dante Pettis was in Kyle Shanahan's doghouse. And that was despite the team trading up for Dante Pettis in the second round just a year prior. He went on to do absolutely nothing during the 2019 season, despite me spending tons of 9th-round picks on him in best ball leagues. I think he needs a fresh start because you can't look at his rookie year and say he does not have talent. And there's a team out there that has a very good emerging third-year player now at wide receiver, a second-year tight end coming up in the 2020 season who might be one of the best receiving tight ends in 3 to 5 years in the NFL. That is the Denver Broncos, because they are starving for another wide receiver option. And the Broncos have 3 third-round selections and 1 fourth-round pick. So sending one of those for Dante Pettis, who previously was a second-round selection, makes sense for both sides, in my opinion.
I am fine with this. I think an underneath option like Dante Pettis will do well. Yes, they need a field stretcher opposite Cortland Sutton, but yeah, I like Dante Pettis in the slot.
But Daigle, why not go all in, right? Because you have this rookie quarterback contract. Why not? I think the Broncos are picking at number 15. Take Henry Ruggs there as your vertical threat, as your dynamo with the ball in your hands. You have Cortland Sutton, you have Noah Fant, and then trade a 3rd or 4th round pick for Dante Pettis, and boom, fun offense that I want to watch every Sunday in 2020.
And we know Dante Pettis isn't going to get a chance with the Niners anyhow, since they have Jalen Hurts coming back, like Trent Taylor coming back. Yes. Okay, I'm fine with this.
I was hoping we'd see Robbie Anderson and or Stephon Diggs wind up in Denver. I mean, clearly they need to add another pass game weapon to that offense. So 10.4 yards per target as a rookie for Dante Pettis. I mean, you don't average that if you're just a completely useless player. I know he's only on 45 targets, but there's still only a handful of guys over the last few years that have even accomplished that. So I'm with you, Josh. Let's do it. His value is never going to be lower than this right now.
All right, Daigle, you have the last individual selection of this draft. And as you know, we come together and figure out our 10th pick. But go ahead.
Would you rather get a little crazy or one that makes sense?
Go crazy.
It's crazy, yeah.
It's not that crazy. Okay.
It's quarantine crazy.
But listen, I love Jay Sternberger. I really do. 3 years ago, he played at a school with 2,000 kids and then transferred to the SEC the following year. 1 year in the SEC, 800 yards and 10 touchdowns. Insane. Didn't run more than 8 routes in any game last year because he was injured for half the season.
You love those 8 routes, though, Daigle. You love them.
He scored a touchdown on those 8 routes in the playoffs. But we need some help here. We know Green Bay needs receiving help. And we know Cleveland just signed Austin Hooper. So why not just give it a shot right now, get another athletic body to play alongside Devin Funchess in line, and just send either the number 62 or number 94 overall pick from the Packers to the Browns for David Njoku.
Love it.
See what we can make here with athleticism as the descriptor for our offense in 2020.
Man, I had Njoku of the Patriots as one of my potential ones. This guy needs to go somewhere. Like Njoku and Chris Herndon, people were just kind of like writing them off when they were just literally both too injured to do anything last year. It wasn't like Njoku was just healthy all season and couldn't, break through. He only got off IR in like week 14 or something like that. And then who even knows what Freddie Kitchens was doing at that point. This guy was a top 10 tight end in catches, yards, and touchdowns in 2018 at 22 years old. I mean, we know the spark score is out of this world. We know he's a freak athlete. Yeah, let's get him somewhere where they're actually going to use him, because the Browns sure as hell aren't going to re-sign him after all the money they gave Hooper. Maybe they use more 2 tight end sets with Stefanski, but either way, again, there's no long-term future in Cleveland now for Njoku. Let's get him somewhere where there is one.
I joined the Establish the Run podcast yesterday with like 2 new guys in the industry, and Adam Levitan and Evan Silva. And we talked to, we talked tight ends. And honestly, one, it helps that this tight end group this year absolutely sucks in the draft. Like, you're going to obviously find some productive maybe on day 2, but there aren't those alpha 1st or 2nd round picks that we've seen in recent years at tight end. But even with that said, that those prospects were viewed as like can't miss evaluations coming from pro style offenses. And TJ Hawkinson and OJ Howard, I can go down the list in the first 2 rounds. From a philosophical team building standpoint, I am kind of out in selecting tight ends in the first 2 rounds of the NFL draft, because you're basically punting rookie years no matter how talented they are. And we've seen plenty of solid, talented, emerging tight ends, some of the best in the league, be in those rounds 3 through 7 of the draft. Now, I don't know how many are going to be in this year's class, but it truly is, and I talk about this all the time, it's that position that, other than quarterback, is the most difficult transition from college ball to the NFL, no matter what system you come out of, because you're basically asked to block like an offensive lineman and catch like a receiver. And we see it time and time again. I would much rather ask the NFL to do the evaluations for me, draft these guys in whatever round, have them go through their first 1 or 2 or 3 years, and then try to get them at a draft capital discount of where they were drafted. And Daigle, it sounds like you're absolutely pointing to that case here with Njoku.
It should be the mantra of this podcast. Pay for tight ends on their second contract rather than developing them on their first.
I absolutely love it. Guys, this is one of our best drafts. We have not closed it out, though. We still have the number 10 selection. I will throw in, this isn't exactly a prediction. It's more of a question. Does Dave Gettleman, for the first time in his career, as an NFL decision maker, trade down or trade up during the NFL draft? I believe he has traded up, but I don't think he has ever traded back.
I don't think he's ever traded back.
10 draft picks this year, including 4 7th-rounders. I mean, it would be so Dave Gettleman to be like, oh, yeah, I would much rather have 4 7th-round picks on my roster rather than try to package some of those and move up or trade them for maybe a 6th-rounder in 2021. So that is my question to all of you.
I mean, he's got a draft from his house. So, like, now we actually have, like, a technological difficulty potential that we haven't had in recent drafts. So, no, I don't think he does otherwise, though.
No, there's no way. Like, he doesn't understand value. There's no way. He's going to take the biggest tackle he can and call it a day.
Okay.
Can I ask one more question before we sign off? Oh, wait.
Yeah.
We have a number 10 to get to really quick?
Yeah, Dago, do you have an option, an extra one that you did not get to? That
I'll go number 10, and
nominate
then
for
I have
10?
a question to pose to the group. Quickly, I have Desmond King going from the Chargers. Since they did sign Chris Harrison and are moving into the slot, I actually have him going to the Lions for that number 3 pick. Of course, this involves a few other picks to be involved. You're not just getting the number 3 for Desmond King.
Yes.
I understand that. But they're going to use him as bait, PFF's number 47 corner among 213 players last year. And they use that as bait with their number 6 overall pick to move up.
All right. I mean,
can we cut the podcast off just after John says?
I understand. I think your delivery was a bit off there, Daigle.
I got to work out the details.
My only concern with that and why it probably won't happen is Detroit just signed, I think, Justin Coleman to like the biggest slot cornerback contract last year, and obviously that's where Desmond King
interchangeable though.
Possibly.
He played both spots last year. He's interchangeable.
Possibly. All right, Ian, save us.
All right, I got a real one. We're sending our boy Curtis Samuel to the Green Bay Packers.
No!
We're taking number 3. What's option number 3?
Yep, that was Josh's for sure. We wanted Robbie Anderson to be in Green Bay. He's now in Carolina, so let's send a better wide receiver to Green Bay. Some say he was miscast as a field stretcher. I'd argue Kyle Allen was miscast as an NFL quarterback. Literally, out of like 70-plus players that had double-digit deep ball targets, it was Corey Davis and Curtis Samuel that were under 20% catchable per PFF. Maybe Samuel will thrive in a low average target depth slot role in Carolina. I think he can thrive as anything on the football field, including running back. Let's send him to a team that only has one viable wide receiver and tight end at the moment. Even if they trade Njoku to Green Bay too, let's also get Curtis. Why not?
How dare you, Ian?
Yep.
I mentioned how loyal of a person you are. Maybe you're trying to be loyal here to Curtis Samuel to take him away from Teddy and bring him to Aaron Rodgers, but you are no longer loyal to me, and that hurts deeply.
I thought you were mad because you were going to propose the same thing. This is just your Panthers fandom.
No, not fandom. I just have to watch them because it's at my core. It's at my foundation to watch the Panthers every single Sunday. And I would still like to watch Curtis Samuel run deep, create separation, be open for a catch, and be overthrown. And that is still fun to me for some reason.
It's fun to me too.
All right. We'll close with that. These are our top 10 theoretical trades that could happen from now until the end of the 2020 NFL Draft. 1, Matt Breida traded to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. 2, the Dolphins trade up for their quarterback of the future. 3, the Browns trade for Trent Williams to lock down their left tackle spot. 4, the Lions are trading, to get Yannick Ngakoue and still land a corner in the top 10. I nominated at number 5, the Ravens trade up from pick number 28 for a priority player along the edge, linebacker, maybe at guard. Ian had back-to-back picks, suggesting that the Eagles trade for Juju Smith-Schuster, which I absolutely love, even if it involves pick number 21. And then he goes back to the well with Chad Kelly to the Los Angeles Chargers, potentially, as he said, as their starting quarterback. I went back to Dante Pettis, possibly being traded to the Denver Broncos for one of their 3rd-round picks or a 4th-rounder. John Daigle, David Njoku to the Green Bay Packers, finally landing them a tight end. And number 10, I guess we will close with Ian's suggestion of Curtis Samuel to to the Green Bay Packers
Not even take
to be their
Desmond King
true,
into account.
real number one wide receiver. John
I'm
Daigle.
happy I could beat Desmond King for number 3 overall pick.
Win
John
this round.
Daigle, you have something you want to say to close?
I tried to get Leonard Fournette on a team in the draft. I couldn't do it. What would you suggest?
Well, Dave Gettleman already has his running back. So I don't know. I don't think he can go anywhere, man. Like, Leonard Fournette is an adequate football player at best in the NFL right now. And I will stand by that.
You don't have to pick up the fifth-year option, though. It is cheap.
He's example A of why receptions aren't a good indicator of if a running back is actually a good receiver. And his success rate is just so terrible. I can't imagine how it'd be as a play caller just watching 10 straight runs go for 2 yards or less. You're always waiting for the big run, but at some point those just aren't going to come either. Then what do you have?
And he runs through contact rather than trying to pick up yards in his own. Immediately.
Jags and Chargers fan, I tried, but they got shut down both.
We will be back later on this week. It'll be myself, Hayden Winks, John Daigle, and most likely Paul Burmeister hosting a live draft that we will have a mock, all 32 first-round picks. That'll be out on your podcast feeds this Thursday and obviously up on YouTube as well. Guys, we're just like a week away from draft week starting. We will be revealing our schedule for all the content that week. We still have team needs and 7-round mock draft series going on right now. We're through the AFC, halfway through the NFC as well. So go and check that out up on Rotoworld. Guys, does that do it for us? That does it for us. My name is Josh Norton. Yeah, go ahead, Daigle.
I was to say, you can also catch us on NBC Sports.
Yes!
You can catch your kitchen on NBC Sports as the Rotoworld crew is slowly making waves every weekday, Monday through Friday at 11:40 a Eastern is what I've heard will be the constant segment.
There you go. There you go. Good job. Self-promotion.
Desmond King at 11:40 prime time.
All right. That is John Daigle. That is Ian Harditz. I am Josh Norris. We talk to you all later this week with a live mock draft. See you then.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.